Real estate agents are salespeople, but salespeople also need leads. Therefore, real estate agents have to also become marketers. And a quote from Alex Hormozi that I absolutely love from his book, $100 Million Leads, is it's hard to be poor with leads banging down your door. Now, in this video, I'm going to break down 8 strategies or tactics, whatever you want to call them, to generate more leads in your real estate business. Now, I'm going to break these down into 2 separate categories. I'm going to break this down from right now business, and I have 5 of those. And then I'm going to break down into future or growth, more long-term business, and I have 3 of those. And I will share a bonus at the end that kind of ties into both. And in my first 5 years in the business, I personally generated over 20,000 leads for buyers, sellers, and investors. And when I was selling myself personally, my first 2 years, that led to me generating over $1 million in total GCI just in my first 2 years in the business. And since I stepped out of sales after that, my team has done over $600 million in volume in less than 5 years. So if you are struggling with generating leads in your real estate business, this video is going to be for you. So let's jump right in with number 1, which is free, and this is for right now business, and this is social media. Now, to be clear, when I talk about social media, I tell every agent that joins my company, Onyx Homes, especially brand new agents, that social media is not a pillar of business. However, if you are competent enough with using social media, meaning like if you can find this YouTube video, you're probably going to be able to do this, is you want to at least pass what I call the sniff test. Is if somebody looks you up, you have to look like you're a real estate agent. So if you're doing all of the other things correct, and then if you get a lead and they look you up and they don't even see that you're a real estate agent online, it's going to be a huge red flag. It's going to hurt your conversion. So at minimum, I'm going to set a minimum bar that's really low, is people have to be able to find you online. Now, a few tips here. This isn't social media, but this is just, I guess, 101, is go to Zillow, go to Realtor.com, go to the different websites where you get a profile, put up your profile picture, write a bio, just make it quick and easy and get it over with. Do that on all your websites. If you have company websites, your Instagram, your TikTok, your LinkedIn, all of those things should be updated and look like you are a real estate agent. Okay, now let's talk to social. One of the number 1 things that I would recommend doing, especially if you're struggling with lead generation, you might be either newer to the business or you're plateaued in your business. And I personally think storytelling is the absolute best way for you to generate more leads. And frankly, it's why I use a lot of storytelling in my personal content that we make. So storytelling would sound like this. If you're newer to the business, it would be showing your path to becoming a very successful agent. Show the literal day-to-day stuff. And take a zoom out for a second, is the most successful agents. Most of them don't focus on social at all. And they just post just listed, just sold, just listed, and escrow just sold, and that's it. And it is the worst content you can possibly post in the world. Nobody cares. But if they were showing every aspect of them doing the work, that's actually interesting. So wherever you're at in your career, you can post what you're doing in the morning. If you're prospecting through the MLS, looking for listings for your best buyers. If you're prospecting on the phone, looking for listings for your best buyers. If you are following up with your clients, sending them CMAs, setting them up on MLS searches. Maybe you're going to a company training. Post all of this. Post your personal development. Post all of these different things. And then when you're writing out a CMA, ask your audience, or I should say, give your audience a way for them to reach out to you asking for help on what you're actually doing right there. So for example, if I'm typing up a CMA for my clients and I've got my computer, I might take a picture of me doing it, or I might do a selfie, and I might say, hey, I'm writing up a CMA for my client who just got $50,000 in equity in the last 6 months. Drop your, DM me or whatever social platform you're posting on. Reach out to me if you want a market update on your property. Or, hey, I just found an off-market property for my buyers. Let me know where you're looking and I can find one for you too, right? Hey, I'm going to a training on 1031 exchanges. There's a lot of really good ways for investors to save money. Let me know if you're interested in investing in real estate, right? All these different things are ways that you can, 1, show that you're actually working. Everybody knows 100 real estate agents, but honestly, I follow probably 1,000 real estate agents. And I wouldn't even know that 995 of them even work because they don't post anything about it. And honestly, for me as a business owner, that's one of the biggest pieces of content that we are making, is actually showing doing the work. So you can do this very easily in your career, is post your story. and be genuine. Don't make it polished. It doesn't need to be a highlight reel. It can just be you doing the things. Tie a bow on social, because not everybody likes to be in front of the camera. And I will tell you that a lot of the content that I make, the written word actually performs a lot better in a lot of circumstances than video does. Now, a lot of times video also performs better, so it's give and take. But if you will not get behind the camera, or in front of the camera, I should say, that's not the end of the world. You can still have your written word, and you can still do video that just doesn't have your face in it. There's a lot of faceless accounts, right? Think Zillow. Everybody knows Zillow, and there's no face behind it. They're just pictures of houses. There's a million social platforms out there where it's literally just home tour with no agents in it at all. And that generates leads as well too. So don't pigeonhole yourself in thinking you have to get a selfie stick out and be an influencer. You just need to make content. And I think sharing your story is one of the best ways to do it. Now, one last thing is just kind of a pro tip on any type of content is make case studies. So what I was kind of talking about earlier is when you're saying, hey, I'm doing CMAs for my clients, it's a case study one that you're actually working. Now, once you're doing deals, this might be more for experienced agents, is when you're doing deals, talk about the deal. Don't post just sold. Tell the story of what actually happened. I like sharing case studies in our content that's consumer facing all the time. And the story can be, hey, we had a buyer that just went through, after we went through our buyer strategy session, they took our advice, they wrote the offer that we suggested how to structure it, and we got $45,000 off the listed price. On top of that, we got a $16,000 credit towards their closing costs. So they had to come up with almost no cash out of pocket to buy this house for closing costs. So this is a case study on why somebody should do a buyer strategy session with you, for example, versus just listed, just sold, or just sold. I got my buyer $45,000 off. Great. Like nobody even understands what that means, or even if that's a good deal. Talk about the actual story, and case studies are an amazing way to do this. Okay, now let's move on to lead generation tactic number 2, which is open houses. This is my personal favorite. And if I were to go back in time, which I have a video talking about, if I was to start over, what would I do? I did open houses. I did open houses every Saturday and Sunday and a lot of Fridays. I did them longer than most people, and I did them more effectively than most people because that was my only lead generation in the beginning. Now I would add on social media of me putting out the signs, cleaning the house, prepping the CMA for the people that came in. Like I would add social on top of this, but doing open houses is an incredible way to build your business. If you've watched the video on how I built my personal business and did over 350,000 in GCI in just my first year, it was really on the back of just doing open houses. And the beautiful thing about it is they're free. Like, yeah, you have to buy signs, maybe you buy some water, some flyers and stuff like that, but it's the least expensive way and probably the easiest way to generate a lot of leads in your real estate business. Now, pro tip on open houses. When I personally did open houses, my goal was to get 1 lead per day, right? So if I did Saturday and Sunday, I was really hoping to get 2 people's contact information. And most of the time that would stick and like we'd be able to have conversations. If I could go back in time, I would have a sign-in sheet and ask everybody to register, so I would capture way more leads. That's number 1. And how I would do that, knowing what I know now, is I would offer what we call a lead magnet. So I would offer something valuable to them so that 1, they were more likely to actually sign in, and 2, that they actually put their correct information because they wanted something valuable. So in the open house, for example, if I could say, hey, thanks for coming to my open house, go ahead and sign in. Once you do, I'm going to send you an email that has a full market analysis of this property along with all the information you'll want, as well as what we think it'll actually sell for. I'm also going to send you a list of all the properties that are like this for sale, including a couple that aren't on Zillow yet. And that's just a subtle, hey, I'm actually going to send you something valuable so that they actually give you the right information. And then I would follow our sales process and try to set an appointment before they actually leave the open house. And in case they have already signed in or maybe they haven't, reconfirm that you have the correct information. So when you're doing open houses, your goal is to maximize the amount of time that you're there for the effort, right? So in my personal opinion, your conversion rate for open house leads really should be about 10%, which is way higher than most lead sources we're going to talk about. Okay, so lead source number 3 is going to be a quick and easy one, but I'm going to give you 2 totally different ways to do this. And I'm not going to go too far into detail because there's tons of content about it, but it's cold calling. So for cold calling, I really see it as there's 2 different ways to do this. On this side of it, you have what I call circle prospecting. And on the opposite end of that, you have cold calling for sale by owners and expireds and stuff like that. So if I'm circle prospecting, this is I'll say less intense cold call rather than the other ones over here of expireds and for sale by owners. So I like cold calling and circle prospecting around your open houses. So a lot of these lead sources can tie together. So open houses and cold calling tie very well together. Imagine if you called the whole neighborhood and said, hey, I'm doing an open house at 123 Main Street, and you invite all the neighbors. You can also do that for properties that were just listed. Hey, I'm just calling to see if you saw that your neighbor's house came for sale. And then you can call again. Hey, I'm just calling to see that to let you know that your neighbor's house actually just closed and your home value's changed. Would you like an updated amount? So this is something you can just always do because there's always new listings. Now also remember that you do not need to be the one that's actually listing that house. You just have to make it clear that it's not necessarily, you don't have to make it sound like it's your listing, but you can call on any listing that comes up. So if you're trying to do open houses in a specific area, adding in cold calling and circle prospecting around that is another super beneficial tool. Another thing that you can do is you can take the buyers that you're getting from wherever your lead generation is. Let's say it's so far social and open houses. If you're getting buyer leads from those, you can circle prospect where they're looking, trying to find them an off-market property. That makes you more valuable to the buyer anyway, which is going to make them want to work with you more and maybe make more money from that because you can charge higher fees for offering more value. So there's a lot of different value here. Now, expireds and for sale by owners, there's total channels that talk only about that lane. I've never personally done it myself, and I'm not a cold caller, so I won't talk too much about this. But this is where reps and scripts and skills absolutely wins. Everybody that I know that makes tons of money cold calling expires and for sale by owners, they're on role play at 7 a.m. and they're on the phone calling people at 8 to 11, and they're back on the phone calling from 4 to 7 p.m. Like this is their thing, and they're super regimented. They're following the scripts. They know the scripts. They role play. This is a very intense lead generation, but it can be very fast money if you need deals now. Number 4 is really in that same vein as well too, is going to be door knocking. So if you're doing open houses, if you're doing cold calling, if you are also door knocking as well too, this can be another thing. Again, similar to how I shared that your open houses will be more valuable, or at least your lead generation will be better if you offer them a lead magnet or something valuable in exchange for their information. Do the same thing when you're door knocking. So go to the door with saying, hey, I have this thing that's really valuable. Are you interested in me sending it to you, or literally giving it to you in exchange for information? So something you could do is you could have a market analysis ready to go for the whole neighborhood. And you could say, hey, I'm doing a market analysis of the neighborhood, or I'm surveying the neighbors, and I have this thing that's really valuable. Would you want me to give it to you, or would you want me to send it to you? All I need is your information. So you can exchange information that way. Now, obviously, you could door knock and just ask people, do you want to sell your house? But that's not going to work as well. And we're talking about generating leads. So I'm going to try to share my advice of how to generate leads better. Now, again, like I said with cold calling, I'm not a door knocker. So I'm not going to go into a ton of advice here because I've never done it myself. However, it is a very good lead source to get right now business. And frankly, if you just knock on enough doors and you say, do you want to sell your house? Somebody's probably going to say yes. All right, we've gone through 4, so that makes this number 5, and this is only for pros. This is only if you're making over $100,000, and this is only if, honestly, you're trying to go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 400 or more per year in income. And this is buying leads, or like I would say, advertising with a online budget most of the time. So there's a lot of different layers into buying leads. So I'm going to go through a couple of them. There is advertising on one side, and then there is buying leads on the other. So I'll talk about buying leads first because I think more people can relate to this. This is buying Zillow leads, buying Realtor.com leads, buying Homes.com leads, right? All the websites that you know that sell leads. That's on one end over here is you are spending money in order to buy leads. So this is pretty much guaranteed most of the time. So over here, this is pretty much guaranteed that you're going to get some leads. For example, I personally invest into Realtor.com. We have a Zillow account as well too. I've spent a lot of money on both platforms. And I say that if I spend $5,000 a month, I can expect to get 20 leads or whatever the thing is. I don't know the exact amount, but you get the point. If I spend money over here, I'm going to get leads. So this is buying leads, usually from larger portals. There's a lot of smaller companies that are doing this now as well too. Now, on this note, I will say there's a ton of these platforms that are going to more of a referral-based model, meaning they won't charge you for leads up front, but they will collect a referral fee when you close. Now, if you need to generate more leads, go sign up for every single one of these you can right off the bat. Now, I will say from experience, these companies generally would rather work with teams rather than individual agents, especially newer ones or ones that don't have systems built out. So just keep in mind not to expect a massive lead flow from these referral partners, but you definitely still want to go make sure you've signed up with all of them. Unless you're already on a team, your team probably has accounts that are much stronger and built out for you to do that. But anyway, that is this side over here is generating leads, or I should say buying leads from portals or getting leads from referral partners. Now, on the opposite side is advertising. So for example, this would be if you have a website, this would be running Facebook, Google, YouTube ads to your website to generate leads. Now, when you spend $1,000 over here, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get anything from it. You might get really good leads, you might get really bad leads, you might get tons of leads, or you might get no leads. So there is an incredibly high skill gap here from, okay, I'm going to go run a Facebook ad. And if you don't know what you're doing, which I've wasted tens and probably maybe not hundreds, but tens of thousands of dollars trying to run ads on my own. And now I pay tens of thousands of dollars, maybe not tens, I pay thousands of dollars every single month for experts to run ads on my behalf because it's just not my expertise. So there is a massive skill over here that's required to be good at this. To whereas over here on the buying leads side, like anybody can go give Realtor.com a credit card and get leads. So as far as advertising, those are the two kind of different modes. If you're gonna do this and you're just starting out, here's my two pieces of advice. Is number one, buying leads overall is easier because you just don't really have to build anything out. They've done it for you, but they are charging likely a very large premium for that lead. Now on the flip side, if you're gonna go into paid advertising, here's my advice, and this is what I ended up doing, was I would hire a company that has, generally speaking, your website companies in the real estate space will also run ads for you. And these ads will be on Facebook or Google pay-per-click is what it's called. Google pay-per-click is fancy for people that type in homes for sale in a city near you, and they go to your website instead of Zillow, and it shows all the homes for sale, and then they click on it, drop their information, and you get a lead. That lead didn't ask to work with you, they just wanted to see the listing. Now you can reach out, call, text, email this person and see if you can convert them. On Facebook, somebody's scrolling, and when I say Facebook, I mean Meta. It's going to be Facebook and Instagram. Somebody's scrolling through their phone, they see a picture of a house, they swipe through a carousel, they see something they like, drop their information. Again, that lead shows up for you to call, text, and email. So this is where I would start over here. And honestly, I scaled this up to about $10,000 a month. And that actually had a pretty darn good return, even with me running that through my team. Now, if I was a solo or individual agent doing this, it would be a heck of a lot of work, but it would have been a way better return than these leads over here, meaning I would have had to work way harder to convert these leads, but it would have made more money than if I converted these leads, which are higher cost, higher quality, but they're really expensive, right? So that's kind of the trade-off here on paid ads. There's tons of information that we can go through. Here's the major pro tip that I want to share. Is your ability to convert these leads is going to disproportionately give you an advantage. So for example, when I was selling in my first 2 years, I mentioned I did over $1 million in commissions, and a large part of that was me converting these types of leads over here. Zillow leads specifically, I was spending I was spending $25,000 a month and converting the leads at about 13% when the benchmark was 5. So I was converting it 3 times, almost 2.5 times the benchmark, and I was making a lot more money than the other people in the market that were also buying those leads. And what that meant was I could spend way more money than they could because I was making 2.5 times more money because I was converting at 2.5 times. Now, same thing with leads over here is if you're converting those at a higher rate, you can spend more money. Because you can spend more money, your leads generally get a little bit cheaper, and that usually snowballs. So your ability to convert these leads at a high level is incredibly important. And for example, when I moved from selling these leads and my conversion was at a 13%, when I moved and trained my agents to follow the same process that I was doing, my conversion as a whole went from me doing it at 13 for my team doing it at 6, right down to that benchmark. So that means our sales dropped in half because I wasn't doing the sales anymore, our team was. So again, when you're doing this, whether you're solo, team, whatever it is, that's one incredibly important thing to understand, is how well you convert these is really going to affect your spending power. Now, I know spending money is not for everybody, so I'm going to move on from this, but those are the top 5 right now lead generation tactics for you to do deals. Now, the next 3 that I'm going to cover are going to be for long term, meaning you're probably going to invest time, money, heartache, sweat equity, whatever it's going to be, for a long-term gain. Okay, so if you need deals now, these top 5, you can probably like the video, subscribe to the channel now, and save the second half for later. But if you also want to build for long-term, which I'm a huge fan of, these next things are for you. And by the way, if you like content like this, talking about lead generation and my experience and my stories, I share way more information in our free community that is on the platform School. Go to onyxhomes.com/school, SKOOL, to go ahead and join. It is totally free. There's a lot of information. You get direct access to me and my team with a lot of lessons in there as well too. So if you want to do that, go to onyxhomes.com/school with the link here in the description as well. And then let's move on to the organic, or the long-term, I should say, lead generation tactics as well. Okay, number 1, first and foremost, as we are sitting here today, is YouTube. I think this is one of the best, but long-term strategies. Now, you've probably seen the ads of these sensationalized, oh, if you start a YouTube channel, you can do $1 million in GCI next year. That might have happened for the person that created the course, but that doesn't happen for everybody. And I can personally tell you that I put 2 videos a week out on our consumer-facing YouTube channel, and that isn't how it works. And I worked very hard to build that channel up. I have a marketing team to help me build that channel up, but it is a ton of work. Now, having said that, is I can directly attribute multiple 6 figures in GCI from that over the last 2 years. Was it worth it? Absolutely yes. Is it going to be worth it more in the future? 1000%. So my advice is, if you're going to do social, I would also add in YouTube as well too. So you can take your YouTube channel and go in a couple of different directions. You can become the expert in a local area. For example, if you want to see our consumer-facing channel, it is all about Orange County, and that's our local market, and we talk about all about Orange County. So if somebody's thinking about moving to or around in Orange County, they might find those videos helpful, and we have call to actions for them to reach out and work with our team. Now, a different route you could go is you as a real estate expert. Maybe you're talking about the market, and you're talking about interest rates, how to get the best deal, more specific stuff. That'd be a different type of channel. Now, the thing that I like about making YouTube content is I like to try to make it more evergreen. So for example, this video you're watching today, this is going to be relevant for a long time. This isn't something that, hey, here's the 8 tips that are working in November of 2025. That would be less I hope that makes sense. That would be like something that works for 30, 60, 90 days versus the 8 lead generation tactics for real estate agents is something that'll probably be around, and everything I'm talking about will probably be around for the next 5-10 years. So this video is going to be evergreen versus here's what you can do before the end of the year in 2025 in order to sell more houses. That would be a video that has a very short life expectancy. So I over-index on making videos that are going to be around for a very long time. And frankly, it's because I put a lot of effort into these. They're not exactly easy to make, and I want to make sure I get the most out of them. So that's why we choose to go that route. So I will say from here, the 2 most important things, regardless of which direction you go as far as type of content, monthly market updates, which goes against what I just said for the evergreen, is very interesting content that everybody always wants. Number 2 is sharing your expertise. So sharing stories, sharing case studies, which we talked about earlier in social, should also be done on YouTube as well too. You can loop in case studies inside of your content. The case study that I just gave you is we have our YouTube channel that we are building out, and over 2 years we've had probably about $300,000 in GCI from it. Totally worth the investment of me making 2 videos every single week. And that's going to get better over time, right? That's a literal case study in the example. But if I'm using this talking to consumers, you can use case studies about the deal you just got your client yesterday, or a client who took your advice, went through your process, your proven process, and then they got the end result that they wanted, right? That, and then here's the testimonial, right? those are case studies as well too, and those work very well in long form content as well, which YouTube's known for long form content. Now, moving on from YouTube, you can also move into farming. Now, I'm going to break farming up into two totally different categories, which a lot of people talk about number one, and not very many people talk about number two. So your different types of farming is your geographic farm that everybody talks about. This is where you're the mayor of the neighborhood. Everybody knows you. Everybody likes you. Everybody's got your calendar on their fridge. And the demographic farm is the other one. So a demographic farm could be you are farming to the non-owner occupieds in your city or in your neighborhood or whatever. And this is where you are sending very specific messaging to a niche demographic. So maybe it's investors you're mailing to or running ads or reaching out to people that own less than 3 properties and they don't live in the state. Or maybe just anybody that doesn't live in the house, meaning it's an investment property of some sort. Or maybe it's people that are downsizing, like likely to downsize. Maybe they're 65 years old in a 2-story home that's paid off. Those people are probably pretty likely to move. I love the idea of a demographic farm personally because it just fits my style better than I would never want to be the mayor of the neighborhood. That's just my personality. Now, if you do want to be the mayor of the neighborhood, that's absolutely fantastic. So these are the two different types of farming that I would suggest. I will also say the traditional geographic farm where you take over a neighborhood generally is a 2-year plan where somebody jumps in, does everything right off the bat and gets multiple deals in the first 6 months. That's why it's in the second half of long term. Everybody else has spent, including myself, tons and tons of time and money, and it's taken a year or mostly 2 years to get the geographic farm working. Now, on the flip side, the demographic farm is something that can hit right away. So if you want to build a demographic farm for the long term, but you also need money right now, that's not a terrible idea, but this will require sweat equity in the way of phone and check equity in the way of mailing to these people. So again, if you're gonna give an offer to anybody, you wanna try to make sure you have something valuable. So if you have these investors in the demographic farm, you're probably gonna wanna say you have a custom investment analysis for them if they're interested to call you, text you, email you, whatever. Versus on your geographic farming, it's more of a one-to-one relationship game. Last but not least, this is number 8, and the third one here in the long term is your professional networking. So in the real estate space, there are a ton of different people. I should say on a real estate deal, there are a ton of different people that are involved in a real estate deal. There's your escrow officer, your title officer, depending on where you live, your mortgage broker, you as the real estate agent, the buyer's agent, seller agent, right? There's just a lot of people involved. There's also all the inspectors and everything else. So what I mean by professional network is you can network with other professionals in and outside of the industry. So for example, if you were to take the time to build a relationship with a group of 5 or 6 different divorce attorneys, and when they do a divorce, a lot of the time, they're probably going to need to sell their property, and they might buy 2 more each. They might each buy a property. So having a relationship with a divorce attorney who might be able to continuously refer you business would be incredibly valuable. So your networking to those people could be a long-term source. You could also do this with assisted living facilities. You could do this with all kinds of different stuff. Any type of attorney, trust attorneys, accountants, financial planners, right? Any of these professions that deal with money and deal with assets are going to be very, very high leverage people where you might make one relationship that might give you 2, 5, 10, 20 deals per year. So those are relationships that you want to make sure you are building over the long term, and set aside a budget to maintain those relationships once you have them. Make sure you're referring business back to the people that refer you the most business. And to be honest, huge pro tip here, you refer business to them first before you ask them to give you business. You know how many times a lender calls me and asks me to send them business, when the reality is that I can send them a heck of a lot more business than they can send me. So that relationship doesn't even make sense in the first place. So if that person says, hey, Christian, I really like to earn your business, here's somebody that wants to buy in your local area, I'm going to refer them over to you. That's a much better way to intro the conversation rather than, hey, Christian, will you send me all your buyers? So make sure you have that in mind as well too. All right, let's do a quick recap because those were the 8 lead generation tactics that I had. Now the first 5, we're talking about ones for right now business. So we talked about social, open houses, cold calling, door knocking, and then paid ads. Again, if you're not making 100,000, stay far away from paid ads. Now, the 3 that we talked about that were for long-term was YouTube, number 1, which I absolutely love. Farming, both geographic and demographic, which I also love. And then last but not least, the networking for professionals. Now, the bonus that I mentioned I'd share with you, I'll share in 1 second. But if you've liked this video, if you're staying around this long, like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with a friend. And if you want to see a deeper dive into stuff like this, go check out our community. Go to onyxhomes.com/school. Now, bonus, this is a huge one. This is a way to generate leads, and it's free. And it's also a way to convert leads at a higher level, which is why I absolutely love this bonus. This is a weekly email newsletter. So when you do a weekly email newsletter, I literally right before this filmed our weekly email newsletter. And if you want to get on this, just go to onyxhomes.com. Right on the homepage, there's a subscribe form, fill that out. And we send this out every single Friday. We've done this for 2 years, and we get a 40+% open rate to well over 10,000 people. So this is something that 1, generates leads, and I'll explain how, but 2, it converts leads at a higher level. So whatever in this video you chose to do, which I should have probably started with this, do not pick more than 2 maximum. But whatever lead generation tactics you are choosing with your business, adding in an email newsletter where you are going to send them every single week the most valuable piece of information possible that you can think of is going to be something that will convert leads at a higher rate. If you remember what I said with paid ads, it works the same with free leads, right? If you're doing open houses and you convert open houses at 20% instead of 10%, you're going to make twice as much money. So this is how it works. Imagine if you had, however big your database is, just imagine if you were to every single week go walk into a room and for 5 to 10 minutes, you were to talk to every single lead in your database about the most important thing going on right now. First of all, how long would it take you to pick up the phone and have a conversation with every single person in your database? It would be probably impossible. Maybe not if you're watching this video and you're generating leads, but if I had 20,000 leads in my database, it would be literally impossible for me to call everybody, let alone have a conversation. But if I could send my message to all of them and 40+% of them are going to open up the email and most of those are going to read at least something, that is one of the highest leverage things you can do to increase your conversion rate. And the reason I say imagine if they were all in a room listening to you speak, it's because of that, right? With 20,000 people, it'd be like filling up a hockey stadium and me giving a 2 to 3 minute explanation of what I think is the most important thing going on in the market right now. That is invaluable. And it's something that is going to increase your conversion ratio through the roof. I just had my handyman at my house the other day, Mike Jenkins. I think you're watching this because you told me you were. Shout out to Mike. He told me he watches every single video. Like he's a vendor that we do a ton of business with. He's like, dude, you really know what you're talking about. I didn't even know he was on the list. So these are things that will increase your conversion rate through the roof. Now, the second part of this is you're also creating content. So that video that I just filmed is also an email. It's also a video that's going to go on YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and LinkedIn, all the other places, but it's also an email, so it's text that we're also going to put on all those things as well too. Now on that, you can ask people if they want to subscribe to your newsletter. So like I said, go to onyxhomes.com, right? The whole that thing right on the front, the header, the hero image is asking you to subscribe to the newsletter. And if you do, you're going to hear from me every single Friday. And if you like what you hear, you might want to do business. So this is a way where you can generate more leads while converting them at a super high rate. Now, again, if you made it this far in the video, I appreciate you a ton. Like, subscribe, do all the things. But I made another video, if you like this idea of newsletters, that breaks down exactly from start to finish, pun intended, how to build your email newsletter. So like this video, subscribe, and I will see you in that next one.